As the world's largest developing country, home to the oldest continuous civilization on Earth, China is no easy place to govern. What are its priorities when making policies that affect the lives of 1.4 billion people? How is the country ensuring that its economic development is sustainable? And what does China's development mean for the rest of the world? Poverty has long cast a shadow over human society. In the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, ending poverty in all its forms was listed as the primary goal. By 2012, nearly 100 million people in China's rural areas were still living in poverty, with a per capita annual income of less than $360. Many of them were scattered across 14 contiguous impoverished areas, mostly in mountainous regions where the natural conditions were harsh. The karst landform, high mountains and vast canyons that are such an attraction for tourists were, to the locals, impediments to leading a comfortable life. In November 2012, a new CPC central leadership was elected, with Xi Jinping as General Secretary.
全党同志的重托，全国各族人民的期望，这是对我们做好工作的巨大鼓舞，也是我们肩上沉沉的担子。
Within 2 months of assuming office, Xi Jinping paid a visit to the village of Luotuowan in Fuping County, Hebei Province.
日子过得还好吧？
哎，都好，哪儿也好。
The village, a 3.5-hour drive from Beijing, lies among the Yanshan Taihang Mountains, one of the 14 contiguous impoverished areas. Before setting off, Xi Jinping told the local government he wanted to see the true state of poverty.
主席的做到我靠我那个他先开给我看了给做熬干水嘞，熬干水嘞，他就是我就让他出个了，我就买了点菜叶，我说给猪捞，他也捞，他也我说爷你还会教猪的，他说哦我是农民出身，我哪个也会。
The CPC had set the goal of building a moderately prosperous society in all respects. In achieving it, poverty had to be eradicated from rural China. The challenge was enormous. How could poverty be eradicated? China found its own answer.
发展生产，实事求是的讲，能抓什么？ 实实在在地抓起来，我们现在叫做精准扶贫。
It was during a visit to Shebadong in Hunan province that Xi Jinping put forward the concept of targeted poverty alleviation. It required local governments to present customized solutions for each poor household and guarantee that poverty aid resources were used for those who needed them most.
脱贫路上一个也不能少，是我说了这句话了。中国人说话，中国共产党说话，中国共产党的领导说话是算数的。
The mission to uproot poverty once and for all required courage and commitment from the highest leadership to low-level cadres. 3 million government employees temporarily left their posts and volunteered to go to the grassroots, stationing themselves in villages. With the support of local officials, they implemented various measures for targeted poverty alleviation. It's winter 2015, and a poverty alleviation task force made up of cadres from Sichuan's Liangshan-Yi Autonomous Prefecture is making its way along a 4-kilometer route to Atulia village, deep in the mountains. It barely qualifies to be called a route. At one point there's nothing more than a ladder made of vines clinging to a cliff. At its narrowest point, it's less than the width of the palm of a hand. The journey takes 4 hours. The reporter is going to the village to cover the resettlement program. On their way, they meet corn vendors and children returning home from school. For them, the climb is part of their daily routine. The village, which sits on top of the cliff, has a population of just 360. The cost of building a decent road to it across the perilous terrain was way beyond the local government's budget. To help the village fight poverty, Hu Wenhua made the move.
你既然都到这个村了，肯定你要实实在在这儿住下去。这个任务交给我，我就一定干完就好。这点担当要有。
The poverty alleviation team eventually decided to install a safer steel ladder. Its completion marked a major improvement in the locals' life. Then, in 2020, the entire village relocated to the county town.
去喝一杯酒呀，去喝一杯酒呀！哎呀，感谢直播间的所有家人们。
Mugor is an online streamer. Since the resettlement, he has been traveling regularly between his new home and the old one on the cliff top.
这个是大两山老师合同啊！感谢你们对木果的支持和陪伴啊！感谢你们对木果的支持和陪伴。木果呢，通过自己的小小的一个梦想去努力。家人们跟我对面点点关注啊！我们就跟对面点点关注啊！ 然后我今天看播1个小时就买了这么多，差不多有50担吧。花椒还有横头，这个哪个地方都有，广东、深圳、上海，浙江。
The cliff village is now a tourist attraction. The site has been transformed into a base for growing local produce, which is sold across the country via live streaming. Thanks to the joint efforts of government workers and ordinary people, China has won the battle against poverty. In that battle, many people dedicated their youth, even their lives. The young woman waving at the camera is Huang Wenxiu. This is an image she left behind.
乡村振兴关键在青年，希望大家多多关注农村发展，多多支持农村工作。
In 2016, after completing her postgraduate studies at Beijing Normal University, Huang Wenxiu chose not to stay in the city. Instead, she returned home to Guangxi to help fight poverty. In 2019, while rushing to see if her village was okay in stormy weather, she was killed in a mountain flash flood. She was just 30. Huang Wenxiu is one of China's heroes whose stories will be told for generations to come. Through a collective effort at all levels from 2012 on, China saw its poverty-stricken population shrink by a remarkable 10 million a year, equivalent to the population of a medium-sized country. The CPC has kept its promise that no one would be left behind on the way to a moderately prosperous society. By 2022, per capita disposable annual income in China had increased from $2,300 to over $4,900. In just 10 years, it had more than doubled.
我赚了10块。
我也买了60块钱。
10块钱，我看钱我还。
The Dalianshan area in Sichuan province was among the last places in China to emerge from poverty. The special train shuttling to and fro here can in no way rival China's world-famous high-speed trains for speed. Like a long-distance coach, it stops at even the smallest stations. For many years, the train has been an economic lifeline for the mountain dwellers. No one in these carriages filled with domestic fowl has been left behind amid the rapid development beyond the mountains.
Cette ambition d'éradiquer la pauvreté en Chine est très importante pour la Chine. Elle est très importante aussi pour l'éradication de la pauvreté dans le monde. Quand on dit aujourd'hui que la pauvreté dans le monde a reculé, c'est en grande partie parce qu'elle a été éradiquée en partie en Chine. Donc il faut être lucide sur cette situation où le phénomène de développement chinois a permis de sortir de la pauvreté.
China met the poverty eradication targets set out in the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, 10 years ahead of schedule. However, poverty eradication is by no means the end of China's efforts. The government has set a higher goal of ensuring that its governance benefits the largest possible number of people.
我觉得套路对这种价位的这个药品是没有价值的。我们请企业第一轮报价。
It's late 2021, and representatives of China's National Healthcare Security Administration are negotiating over a drug, nusinersen sodium. It's used in treating spinal muscular atrophy, a rare neuromuscular disorder. When it first arrived on the Chinese market in 2019, nusinersen sodium cost $98,000 a shot. Patients needed 6 injections in the first year and 3 each year after that. This was way beyond the means of the vast majority of Chinese families.
我们5个都是在地方一线工作的医保人员，我们是直接面对面的在接触这些群体。我们希望企业再努力，我们希望在点评阶段给到企业明晰的指引，好吗？
During the negotiations, the company representatives leave the room multiple times for private discussions.
经过我们的这个商量，取一个好的这个，也是一个吉利的数字。
请问这是你们确认的最终报价吗？ 请确认。好的，成交。
Through 8 rounds of give and take bargaining, the price of the drug was reduced to $4,600 per injection. Immediately it was added to the list of drugs covered by China's basic medical insurance.
当时就想着国家的政策会越来越好呢，我们就盼着能早点给他用上，就一直等，一直等，真的。那现在就是谢谢吧，谢谢国家一直就没放弃过我们，好几年了，一直在进行谈判。
A month after the negotiations concluded, Mr. Zhang's son was finally given the life-saving drug. It was the first time nusinersen sodium was administered in Hebei province after it was covered by the national medical insurance.
哎呦，我儿子就努力起来了，好，太厉害了。
Given China's huge population, even a rare disease can affect tens of millions of people. By 2021, more than 50 drugs for rare diseases were listed in China, 40 of them included on the list of those covered by the country's basic medical insurance.
以人民为中心的这个人权发展理念，那么就是依靠人民，为了人民，由人民呢来参与经济发展和社会进步，同时呢享受发展带来的成果。
Centralized procurement by the country's medical insurance fund has served to bring down prices by 80 to 90% for medical supplies that originally cost thousands of US dollars. These include coronary stents and artificial joints. The prices of nearly 300 drugs have been cut by more than half. By the end of 2021, 1.36 billion Chinese people were covered by basic medical insurance. They were entitled, thanks to their social security cards, not only to medical services and real-time settlement, but also to other social benefits. Drolma is an ethnic Tibetan. She lives in Chuji Township in Qinghai Province, which lies 4,000 meters above sea level. In addition to studying subjects such as Tibetan language and mathematics, Drolma also learns English.
Hard work. No.
However, at her school there's no properly qualified English teacher.
Sometimes.
我想到山外面去工作，因为大山里虽然漂亮，但是大山外的世界比这里更漂亮更好。
Fortunately, with 100% broadband access at primary and secondary schools across China, Drolma is able to get help from an English teacher in Beijing via online classes. For students at remote schools like Drolma, access to quality educational resources has become much easier.
学生们全部都是这几天全部都说的是英语，什么那个生日快乐啊，天天就是那样的。Good morning 嘛啥都是那样，他们好奇心嘛现在。
Equal, quality education for all China's children is becoming the reality. This greater accessibility is being accompanied by a heightened sense of engagement. Through community self-governance, citizens can solve their problems by themselves. Through their local communities, they can even have input into the legislative process.
我们最基层的老百姓来参与立法，听听我们老百姓的心声，我们觉得很接地气，很民主。
In October 2020, China drew up a draft development plan for the period 2021 to 2025. Prior to its adoption, the authorities solicited public comments and suggestions via the internet and received more than 1 million replies. Among the suggestions that were subsequently included in the plan was that of mutual aid elderly care. It had been submitted by someone calling himself Yun Fan, who, unbeknown to those receiving it, was a grassroots official in Inner Mongolia.
一直在想探索这个就是农村这个养老问题。这个互助养老模式的年轻的有能力的那个老人，他可以照顾帮助那个年纪大的，就是说能力相对弱的那种。哎呀，没想到，真的感觉很意外那种，建议都被中央采纳。
Over the past decade, people across China have witnessed the tremendous efforts made by the government to improve their livelihood, especially in poverty alleviation, healthcare, and education. At the same time, the country is revealing a fresh approach to its national development philosophy. Fuxin is an industrial city in northeast China. In 1953, it featured in China's first five-year plan for economic development. Fuxin thrived on coal. The Haizhou open-pit mine, 3 kilometers outside the city center, was once the largest in Asia and Fuxin's pride. In the course of half a century, Fuxin produced over 500 million tons of raw coal. If carried on 60-ton trucks, lined up end to end, they would circle the Earth 4 times. At its peak, over 30,000 people depended on the mine for their livelihood. However, the glory and pride of the past have become the scars of today. At the turn of the century, with its coal depleted, Fuxin entered a period of decline. This was a foreshadowing of the problems brought by China's rapid growth. There's an old Chinese saying that serves as a warning. Nature produces seasonally and with a limit. 20 years ago, when he was working in Zhejiang province, Xi Jinping began to advocate a green, sustainable development strategy. Yucun village in Zhejiang was once hailed as the richest village in the region. Its wealth was derived from quarrying limestone. However, the industry severely polluted the village's river and air. In 2005, the quarry was closed. Following the quarry's closure, Xi Jinping, who was Zhejiang Provincial Party Secretary at the time, visited the village. He affirmed that closing the quarry to improve the environment had been the correct decision. For the first time, he put forward the concept that lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets.
我们过去讲的，既要绿水青山，又要金山银山。实际上，绿水青山就是金山银山。
After Xi Jinping was elected General Secretary in November 2012, the CPC introduced a series of new concepts, ideas, and strategies aimed at promoting China's economic and social development. Among them, green development was identified as a prerequisite for building high-quality modern economic systems.
在经济发展中促进绿色转型，在绿色转型中实现更大发展。
As the main direction of its green development, China has been adjusting its energy structure and promoting energy transformation. To this end, it has been vigorously expanding renewable energy sources such as solar and wind power. In 2020, China's renewable energy power generation reached 2.2 trillion kilowatt-hours, or 29.5% of its total power consumption. This represented an increase of 9.5% from 2012. In 2021, China's installed capacity of renewable hydro, wind, solar, and biomass power ranked first in the world. The Bashang grassland in Zhangbei is famous for its perpetually fierce winds. Once a nightmare for the local people, the strong winds have now become a precious resource.
张北的风特别大，我们都说它一年刮2次，一次刮半年。小时候特别讨厌风，而现在特别盼着刮风，因为有了风才有电。
On the undulating ridges, giant wind turbines are working day and night to deliver clean, green energy. Fuxin, a city that once relied heavily on coal-fired power plants, has embraced green development. Today it is thriving thanks to industries such as new energy, green food, high-end equipment and fine chemicals. In Yuzun village in Zhejiang, the locals have discovered a new source of wealth in its beautiful natural environment. They are making money in an environmentally friendly way from its abundant bamboo. The village is also attracting tourists from nearby Shanghai, Hangzhou and Nanjing. Yuzun village's 280 households are earning a per capita income of around $7,000. The changing concept of development is driving innovative practices. Green development is an important pillar in the high-quality development of China's economy and society, and a high-quality and strong economy makes it possible to further develop China's science and technology.
5、4、3、2、1，点火！
At 11:23 a.m. on April the 29th, 2021, with a thunderous rumble, a Long March rocket was launched. It was carrying the Tianhe core module of the Chinese space station into its new home above the Earth. On June the 17th, with taikonauts Nie Haisheng, Liu Boming, and Tang Hangbo on board, the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft docked with the Tianhe module, opening a new chapter in China's manned spaceflight program.
哇，这外面太漂亮了！
Afterwards, the Shenzhou 13 and Shenzhou 14 spacecraft were also launched successfully. From the Chang'e project to the Tianwen-1 Mars probe, from the Beidou satellite system to the expanding Chinese space station, independent innovation is driving China's aerospace industry. In the past decade, in areas such as high-speed rail, mobile payment, the digital economy, and artificial intelligence, the evolution of its science and technology strategy has been providing impetus for the growth of China's economy. Spaceflight represents a dream for all humanity. In June 2019, in a joint statement, the China Manned Space Agency and the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs announced that 9 projects from 17 countries had been selected as the first batch of scientific experiments to be conducted on the Chinese space station. China's space station is open to all UN member states. This demonstrates that China is willing to share its achievements in space and to work with other countries to pursue new scientific discoveries and knowledge.
中国的空间站今后是一个全球科学家开展空间科学研究的一个非常理想的、非常好的平台。这些平台会促进科学事业的发展，促进科学探索的这个进步。
I'm sure that many international partners will be very much looking forward to doing scientific experiments on board the Chinese space station. Why? Because astronauts' time and resources are scarce. Scientists, they want and they need more time on board. So opening up additional opportunities through doing new experiments on the Chinese space station, I think will give a very strong impetus for global science.
In recent decades, China's opening up has fueled a high rate of economic growth. Over the past 10 years, the country's further economic development has been achieved in a more open environment. Shanghai, one of the most dynamic commercial centers in the country, has always been at the forefront of China's reform in opening up. In 2013, China established its first pilot free trade zone there. In order to create a convenient investment and trading environment for Chinese and overseas enterprises, the administrative center of the Shanghai Pilot Free Trade Zone opened special windows for industry and trade, tax management, tariffs, border inspection, and other affairs. Each window is responsible for one issue. They are a one-stop shop where companies can complete all the registration procedures.
I think the procedure became more and more easy, and simple, because before the free trade zone opens, the foreign companies should apply for the government approval to set up a new company. But after the free FT zone opens, they just apply for the business license. It's okay, they can begin their business. The free trade zone attracts more and more investors.
Another key innovation by the Shanghai Pilot Free Trade Zone was to approve the first joint operation of a foreign law firm, Baker & McKenzie, and a Chinese law firm, Fenshun Partners. Such a move would not previously have been permitted.
It's never been possible for international firms to be able to combine seamlessly with PRC law firms to offer Chinese local law advice and international law advice in the same platform. So this is the first ever.
Another example of China taking the initiative to open its market is the China International Import Expo. Since its inception in 2018, it has been held 5 times. As the world's largest exporter of dairy products, New Zealand-based multinational Fonterra's sales account for 1/3 of the global dairy trade. Since its entry into the Chinese market, its sales here have been increasing yearly and currently account for over 25% of the group's overall revenue. At the Import Expo, Fonterra signed orders worth $1.7 billion with Chinese supply chain operators.
China is a really great market to be in, especially for me being in innovation. It's probably one of the most exciting markets in the world.
With fewer restrictions comes a better business environment. Foreign-owned enterprises are sharing more new opportunities created by China's development and are also benefiting from China's wider opening to the outside world. In the Global Business Environment ranking, China jumped from 91st in 2012 to 31st in 2020. China's openness is also rooted in the national culture. China has continued to deepen its international cultural exchange and mutual learning with increasing confidence, openness, and inclusivity. From the Linchuan Four Dreams to A Midsummer Night's Dream, in East and West, 2 great playwrights lived around the same time in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. They are Tang Xianzu and William Shakespeare. Born in the same era, they represented 2 very different cultures. In 2016, the British town of Stratford-upon-Avon commemorated the 400th anniversary of William Shakespeare's death. A delegation from Tang's hometown of Fuzhou in Jiangxi province presented statues of Shakespeare and Tang to Stratford to honor the 2 men who had died in the same year. The delegation included an art troupe, They brought with them from Tang's birthplace the classic Chinese opera, The Peony Pavilion. It was a historic moment when a work by a giant of Chinese literature was performed in Shakespeare's home. Its fine traditional culture is providing rich nourishment and a positive social environment for China's development still today. This is an event held in Xitang in eastern China to celebrate Hanfu culture. In recent years, this traditional dress style has come to represent the cultural confidence and self-expression of young people. Xin Nan is a young model from Beijing who is fascinated by Hanfu. This event gives her the opportunity to express her own ideas about the traditional concept of beauty.
我觉得汉服有一种特殊的魅力，就是在我穿上它的时候，仿佛自己真的回到了那个朝代。这两个都是唐制的汉服，唐朝的汉服大概就是轻纱什么的比较多一点。其实流传到现在，大家认为唐朝是以胖为美，其实不是，是只是唐制汉服比较没有那么显身材。
In recent years, Hanfu has become a new fashion trend among young people. The traditional costumes of the Han people, once seen only in small circles, are now appearing in public again. The emergence of Hanfu fever is no chance occurrence. In the era of the creative economy, young Chinese consumers are interested in expressing their individuality. On top of that, China's economic development has boosted people's cultural confidence and desire for self-improvement. But what does China's development mean for other countries around the world?
We are unstoppable! Another world is possible! We are unstoppable!
In December 2015 in Paris, 200 delegations, working under immense pressure, drew up a historic agreement committing most of the world to take action on climate change. The original climate change conference was held in Berlin in 1995. It was the world's first attempt to reach agreement on the issue. The Paris Conference on Climate Change was the 21st attempt. After 12 days, the negotiations had entered overtime, and still no agreement had been reached.
当时是斗争非常激烈，矛盾非常尖锐。应该说，习主席一直走在前面，亲自做工作，提出了各个国家要求同存异，相向而行。
Il y avait quelques pays qui étaient quand même un peu réticents. Alors je suis allé voir mon collègue et ami chinois, avec qui nous avons travaillé ensemble. Il m'a dit, le président Xi m'a dit qu'il fallait que ce soit un succès, je vais t'aider. Il est revenu 1 heure après et m'a dit, pour les pays dont tu m'as parlé, c'est d'accord. Je vois que la réaction est positive, je n'entends pas d'objection. L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
Contemporary human civilization has reached a level never seen before. Yet the world and global governance are facing a series of crises. In addition to the challenge posed by climate change, there are also serious problems in the areas of development, security, and health. How can we come together to solve the common challenges confronting humanity?
"让和平的薪火代代相传，让发展的动力源源不断，让文明的光芒 熠熠生辉，是各国人民的期待，也是我们这一代政治家应有的担当。中国方案是构建人类命运共同体，实现共赢共享。
In February 2017, building a community with a shared future for mankind was enshrined in a United Nations resolution, and later in documents of the UN and international multilateral mechanisms.
That is very much in line with the needs of the world today. If we are going to find the solutions to the very big problems of the planet that affects all of us, it must be people-centered.
Long before the word globalization existed, 2,000 years ago, the Silk Road extended from the Chinese city of Chang'an, today's Xi'an, across Eurasia to Rome, promoting economic and cultural exchange between East and West. In the new millennium, China has created the vision of the Belt and Road. In 2013, President Xi, for the first time, proposed the initiative of jointly building a Silk Road economic belt and a 21st century maritime Silk Road. The Belt and Road Initiative, officially known as the Silk Road Economic Belt and the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road, encourages countries to improve their infrastructure connectivity. The aim is to advance broader and more in-depth regional cooperation at a higher level, along with economic globalization.
Clearly, the world has large infrastructure needs. So there are big infrastructure gaps in low-income countries, even in many middle-income countries.
Annual demand for infrastructure investment is projected to be approximately $730 billion.
This infrastructure gap is large and widening.
In October 2013, China proposed establishing the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. The AIIB began operations in January 2016 with 57 founding members, of which 18 are in Europe. Along with the AIIB, other financial institutions such as the New Development Bank and the Silk Road Fund opened in the year after the Belt and Road Initiative was launched in order to support infrastructure construction in the countries involved. The route running through China's Xinjiang and Inner Mongolia and on to Europe is the China-Europe Railway Express. Cheaper than air freight and faster than ocean freight, the international railway corridor has facilitated economic exchange between China and Europe and among countries along the Belt and Road. In the East China city of Yiwu, known as the world's largest small commodities market, Mohammed is shopping around early. He has a thick stack of purchase orders for bicycle accessories, LED lights and stuffed toys. He comes originally from Jordan and started his trading business in Yiwu with about $4,000.
我记得那个时候，一个晚上跟几个朋友在油站吃饭，他们跟我说，中国有个地方叫Yiwu，你能去那边做生意，那边机会比较多。
Mohammed has now spent over 2 decades in China. During that time, he has married a local woman and become the father of 2 girls. In 2014, a freight train service between Yiwu and Madrid started operating. Mohammed began selling small commodities from Yiwu to 13 countries and regions along the route and beyond. In 2020, his company's exports were worth $130 million.
阿尔及利亚、摩洛哥、非洲那边呢，包括那个现在美国那边呢，意大利、西班牙都在做。“一带一路”将来很多国家连在一起的。
As of January 2022, The trains running between China and Europe had made more than 50,000 journeys, connecting China with 180 cities in 23 countries and carrying cargo with a total value of $240 billion. The trains loaded with Chinese goods head to European markets and return with red wine, cheese, chocolate, and a variety of other foreign products that enrich the lives of Chinese people. As a key platform for building a human community with a shared future, the Belt and Road Initiative connects countries and allows them to share their development opportunities. Serbia in southeastern Europe was one of the first countries to support the initiative. The Smederevo steel mill, established in 1913, was once labeled the pride of Serbia. But by 2008, amid the global economic crisis, the mill was on the verge of bankruptcy.
Fabrici za sinterovanje bio dosta težak, sa stanovišta ekologije nije baš uvek bilo sve prihvatljivo.
武基奇时任总理，他就是说救救我们这个企业，我们这里有5000多个员工，有很多子女需要上学，需要就业，而且他说，中国是我们塞尔维亚的老朋友，是我们值得托付的朋友。
In April 2016, HBIS Group entered into cooperation with Smederevo. A Chinese operations team was dispatched and 300 million euros was poured into revamping the obsolete production lines. Through the joint efforts of both, the mill returned to profit within a year. This brought renewed hope to the local community and promised to boost the city's development.
All those countries know that they have to be linked to other countries. And instead of linking them with some kind of ideology, you link them in a very practical way.
Poverty reduction is a global challenge. While committed to eliminating its own poverty, China is also actively participating in international poverty reduction cooperation. To this end, it is sharing its development experience with other countries and supporting the developing countries, especially those that are least developed. The population of Mozambique in Southeast Africa is made up mostly of farmers. Half of them are living below the poverty line. In recent years, China's practical agricultural technology and experience have provided essential support for the country's economy.
What I do basically in the farm is to support the farmers, teach them, work them day by day how to plant rice, the technical procedures during the cycle of rice. And I started in China for almost 8 years.
When Campbell needs help with rice planting, he calls his teacher in China. The Xai Xai project of China-Africa Agricultural Cooperation is the biggest rice farming project that China and Africa have ever worked on together. China helps the local farmers by teaching them new technology and providing them with seeds, fertilizer, modern machinery, water pumps, and other facilities.
Aka project leyi a ni nyimela leswaku liya mahlweni leswaku ni ta kota ku va ni wundla muti wa mina.
La mejor forma de combatir y de sacar un pobre de la pobreza no es darle de comer, es enseñarlo a pescar. Y China a su pueblo le enseña a pescar a partir del trabajo.
In 2017 and 2019, China hosted 2 Belt and Road Forums for International Cooperation. By the end of June 2022, China had signed more than 200 Belt and Road cooperation agreements with 149 countries and 32 global organizations. By that time, its trade volume with Belt and Road countries had amounted to nearly $12 trillion. The world's biggest connectivity framework consisting of 6 corridors, 6 connectivity routes, and multiple countries and ports, was well and truly in place.
中国愿同国际合作伙伴共建“一带一路”，把“一带一路”建设成为和平之路、繁荣之路、开放之路、绿色之路、创新之路、文明之路。
In the autumn of 2022, the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China convened in Beijing. Subsequently, a new CPC central leadership was elected, with Xi Jinping at its core.
"我们将同各国人民一道，弘扬和平、发展、公平、正义、民主、自由的全人类共同价值，维护世界和平，促进世界发展，持续推动构建人类命运共同体。